Club today, we have one of our favorite friends of the program, CBS Sports JP Acosta joins us to break down his initial thoughts as the Jacksonville Jaguars set to step onto the grass. Am I allowed to say that, Pete Prisco, tomorrow morning for the first time of 2026 training camp? You will also hear from the head coach Liam Cohen, quarterback Trevor Lawrence, who both caught up with Brent Martineau and Austin Lane yesterday. Let's get after it, folks. A whole lot to get into in this final preseason, off-season, before training camp kicks off edition of Club 904. What is going on, party people? Thank you so much for hanging out with us on the Action Sports Jacks 24/7 network here in Club 904. As always, I am your host, Mia O'Brien. For the first time this upcoming season, I am back in Action Sports Jacks World Headquarters. We're going to be here on Tuesdays at 2 o'clock anyways during the season. We might as well get used to it. Before I bring on our next guest, first things first, a little bit of housekeeping. Make sure you like this episode. Make sure you subscribe to Action Sports Jacks, as well as following the Brent and Austin show, obviously. But know that young Noah doing Yeoman's work, Hamby doing the Lord's work. They are clipping episodes, parts of those episodes with Brent and Austin, including our interview with Liam Cohen and Trevor Lawrence. That is available on demand right now, and you're going to hear part of it at the end of today's episode. But without further ado, first off, I'm realizing as we bring this gentleman into the club, somehow, some way, JP Acosta, before we came on the air, we start talking about wedding planning, but I never formally congratulated you. Big moves this summer for young JP, a long time. Have I been in New Jersey? Jeez. Long time Jaguars fan. We appreciate you hopping in with us, and mazel tov to you and the soon-to-be missus.
Yes, thank you, and congratulations to you as well. It's been fun seeing just like everything when it comes to wedding planning. We actually on Instagram, I showed my fiance Lauren some of your wedding. I'm like, oh, I want to do that. Like, I want some of that stuff.
Let me guess. Is it the football seating chart?
It's the football seating chart, and I think the fat heads of the pets.
Of the cats. Yes, this is literally about to be my claim to fame. You made my day, and we are literally 3 minutes into the program, knowing that the cat fat heads of young Terrence that I was shamed by half my family for putting together. And then the football seating chart that my wedding planner didn't understand. I don't think until it actually was like sitting in front of her. This makes my day, JP. So you haven't even given me any football analysis. And I'm like, man, JP, one of my three good things at the end of the day. So appreciate you for that. I'm excited to see what you guys cook up, but 2028, so you've got a little bit of time before the big day. And that means you've got a little bit of time to break down the team that you have followed your entire life, even though you cover the entire National Football League for CBS Sports, which is why I'm so excited to have you on this final episode before training camp kicks off. We're going to start with big pressing thoughts, big picture items. We did that on last week's episode with our roundtable locally here in Jacksonville. John Shipley of Sports Illustrated, Gus Logue of Big Cat Country, our friend Dan Griffiths here at Action News Jacks, all of whom I think you've worked or interacted with in some form or fashion previously. And so let's bring you in as our national insider, if you may, our national analyst. And so you tell me, JP, right off the top, when you think 2026 Jacksonville Jaguars, the first thought that pops into your head is what?
I think people have sort of over-indexed what happened in the offseason for the Jaguars. It's like, oh, this team is going to go backwards this year, when the biggest thing about this offseason is they retained everybody when it comes to the brain trust of this operation. Defensive coordinator Anthony Campanelli is back, even though I thought he might have gotten a head coaching job. Grant Udinski, offensive coordinator, is back. Liam Cohen is back for another year with Trevor Lawrence. This is going to be one of the first years where everybody returns for this entire unit on both sides of the ball. And I think that's really exciting for this group, especially with how much the coaching sort of raised the floor of this team. And now when we talk about floors and ceilings, I do think that this draft and this offseason was about raising the floor. This is sort of the bigger overarching thought for the Jaguars this season for me, is this team should now have a high floor with their coaching and with some of the physicality and the people they added to complement the stars on the roster. But the question is, can your stars, can they raise the ceiling, which is what we're looking to see?
As we set the table for this episode, we establish it early. I know you love to establish it, JP, much like many of our other friends at CBS Sports. Shout out to one Richard Johnson. And so for me, my biggest thought as we get set to kick off training camp here in Duval tomorrow is that run game. But it's not, oh, who's going to be the right guard? Are they going to be able to run the football? Is Bashal Tootin actually legit? Is Chris Rodriguez hurt? No. For me, my bigger overarching question is this, JP. We have heard Liam Cohen. We have heard James Gladstone. I spoke with Brian Picucci, the new run game coordinator, of course, longtime lieutenant of Liam Cohen, back during the offseason program. And all of them have echoed the same thing, which is they are not going to change a run game that, yes, was putrid at times down the stretch of the 2025 season. They're not going to be able to flip a switch, not just on the run game itself, but on where they ultimately want to be with this regime and the run game in 12 months' time or less than that, because obviously the season ended in January. So in 9 months' time. And so I'm fascinated, and tell me your expectations for what this run game that, by the way, it did finish 12th in EPA per rush last year. Like, I know people want to act, especially in lieu of some of those final performances on the grass, they want to act like this run game was abysmal and they want to run off half the offensive line. But it was one of the better run games on the offensive side of the ball in the league the first 6-7 weeks of the season. But ultimately, again, it's not going to be that ultimate form that Liam wants. So what should we expect to see this upcoming year?
I think we should expect to see some more physicality from this group. And their entire offseason, I think, was framed by the 2 losses to Seattle and Los Angeles during the regular season. It was the Bills loss. The Bills loss sucked. It was a really bad loss, but nothing stuck out more than them getting pantsed in London by the Rams, and who basically beat them over the head with 13 personnel, and then the Seahawks completely overwhelming them on the defensive line. That's something that I don't think they want to ever happen again. It's why you go out and draft Emmanuel Pregnon in this year's draft, who I think could compete for starting time because of how physical he is and how they want to improve in the short yardage run game. I do think that they can still create explosives. I think even watching back some of the games of the Jaguars last year, they can create explosives in the run game. Liam Cohen is a very good run game designer, but it's now about 3rd and 2, 3rd and goal. Can you go and score a touchdown? Can you get a first down? That's what the Jaguars need to improve. So I think that's the biggest thing that I'm looking forward to in the run game is an improved physicality and their ability to win in short yardage situations.
This is an interactive program. We appreciate the nearly 100 of you hanging out with us live right now. Look, they see JP Acosta in the title and they're like, oh, we got to tap into Club 904 today. This is from our friend Ether Dark. A little bit of news and notes I was going to save for the end, but we might as well talk about it as we discuss the run game, JP. Ether Dark asking, Macari for Vita Vea. Not really sure that's exactly how trade compensation works in the NFL in 2026, but I think that, again, this stems from this conversation of the Jaguars' offensive line. I believe, unless Wyatt Milam thoroughly beats out Patrick Macari for that right guard spot, it is going to look, in my opinion, on July 28th, the day before training camp opens, the same, minus the Cole Van Lannon of it all at left tackle, left to right, as the same 5 that you saw throughout most of the home stretch of 2026, knowing, of course, that Macari was limited with a injury down the home stretch of the season. And so Walker Little was at right guard as opposed to left tackle. And so that's where this whole notion of we're going to run off this guy, we're going to run off that, they like who they have. And ultimately, yes, Patrick Macari is probably only here for one more year, but they seem happy with him. And I do think, to your point about Emmanuel Pregnon, ultimately, even if he doesn't beat out Ezra Cleveland for the left guard spot, it's okay because Ezra's entering the final year of his deal. This is all about reloading. And that's why I prefaced that question by saying they're not going to be Liam Cohen's optimal run game or optimal offensive line this year. They're not going to have the physicality that they ultimately one day want to have with those bigger bodied offensive linemen that they drafted in Pregnon. They brought in an undrafted free agency because you can't flip it that quickly knowing how the books are currently stacked contractually.
And with Macari, I do think a lot of what happened with the run game last year is he and Robert Hainsey both got hurt. And I think Robert Hainsey was a very quiet, important piece of that run game because of all the movement stuff they asked him to do. All the pin pull, all the sweeps that you see, the touchdown against the Chargers where Robert Hainsey's pulling around. That's something Robert Hainsey can do. And, you want to say you can trust Jonah Monheim there, but Jonah Monheim was a tackle converted to center who's also sub 300 pounds. There's a lot asking of him, especially when you're facing DeForest Buckner, Grover Stewart, the Texans, whatever they got going on, and Jeffrey Simmons twice a year. That's a lot to ask of a sub 300 pound center. But I think both Macari, Ezra Cleveland, I think this unit, like you said, outside of the Cole Van Lanen, like when he gets healthy, Van Lanen is going to be the starting left tackle. But I think it's going to look the same as it did towards the end of last year. And most of these guys that they drafted, the younger ones, are going to be for 2027. That's going to be when they're really going to start to turn everything over. So if Emmanuel Pregnon does play well and beats out Ezra Cleveland in camp, that's a good problem to have. You now have multiple guys you can start. And what we saw last year is they like having that. They like having this good problem of, hey, if a guy gets hurt, we can just put another guy in and we don't miss a beat. So I'm a little excited to see what this offensive line grows into, especially with most of the guys healthy outside of Van Lanen. But even with some of the young guys, I'm curious to see how they fit in, especially as they try and get bigger, try to get more physical. Maybe we see more 6 offensive linemen on the field. Maybe we see them put Pregnon on the field just in obvious run scenarios. So I'm curious to see how it all shakes out.
Or maybe, to your point about the Rams and Seahawks losses affecting Liam Cohen, James Gladstone, and this administration at their core, maybe instead we see more 13 personnel, because Liam Cohen did say he doesn't want to live in a world where they have only 2 tight ends healthy and active on game day, and he's having to live in the world of that 6th offensive lineman. But before we get to that, JP, one more question in the chat. This is from our friend Heft. No answers from our offensive line staff for stunts and twists last year. Your assessment of the counter from the offensive line staff and what Pacucci will bring, knowing what he was able to do in Tampa, albeit last year without one healthy Bucky Irving.
I mean, with stunts and twists, it's as much about coaching as it is in-game communication. That is very much the left guard, left tackle, center. They all have to be in sync. They have to be able to say, like, all right, if this guy goes this way, if they're doing a 3-man slide, so left tackle, left guard, left, and the center all slide into their left. The other 2, right guard, right tackle, are handling their situations one-on-one. If they're sliding to the left, everybody knows, okay, if the edge loops in, I got him, you got him. So it's more, as much as it is on coaching, I think it is just about getting those reps together and making sure you stay on the same line. When you see sacks given up, when you see pressures affecting the quarterback, it's because the offensive line isn't at the same levels. The tackle is deeper than the guard, or the guard's playing too high up, and now you have open gaps where defensive linemen can penetrate. So it's really more about communication than it is coaching. But of course, coaching can help streamline those communication points. So I think it's just going to have to be a situation where we're going to have to trust that they could communicate in their second year together and see what happens.
Yes, Hef, our resident offensive lineman, follows up by saying that doesn't work when you are running man, big on big versus slide, zone blocking. Any thoughts on, in terms of schematically, what Pacucci and what, again, the evolution of this run game might mean in terms of stylistically and scheme-wise, what the Jags offensive line and run game will run?
I think they want to add more gap scheme, but even last year, they were actually like really good running split zone. And I think that's something that I want them to continue to do going into 2026, because I think it helps streamline some of the vision for Bashal Tootin, for Chris Rodriguez, for LaQuint Allen. It makes it really easy. It makes it easier to read than traditional zone runs, and you're able to get some of that backside flow and eliminate sort of the threat of the backside edge by having the tight end split back across to either block him or give the threat of bootleg scenarios. So I want them to lean more into the split zone, but I would be lying if I was sat here and say I didn't want to see him like just go up there and run duo and power and just kind of mash people, because I think that's something that they need to add to their game.
And that's also, again, to the point of identity. That's what it sure sounds like they want to be. They want to be a smash mouth football team, which is incredible when you consider this idea of the Los Angeles Rams circa 2019, where the spread, 11 personnel, taken from the college game type of offense. And now you fast forward 7 years and they're an outfit that's running 13 personnel. And while, yes, it's not exactly the most marquee names along that offensive line, they do want to play more smash mouth football. So let's stick with that theme. You obviously brought up the tight end play, and in terms of Nate Borkercher being added via the second round, Tanner Koziel, who again, John Shipley and I agreed on last week's episode here of Club 904. I think he's a healthy scratch the first few weeks of the season, unless, to the same point of Emmanuel Pregnon, he emerges as a real threat, which in that case, then yeah, he earns himself a jersey on game day. But ultimately, I think he's always in play in the incubator for 2027. And so you tell me, JP, tons of 13 personnel, tons of 12 personnel coming for the Jags? Or was this just a move made to once again really hit home that point of we are going to be more physical and we're going to be more multiple because you don't know what we're going to trot out each and every Sunday?
I would love to see them lean more to the 13 personnel because I think they have the guys to do it. I know that this receiver room is incredibly talented and they all have different capabilities and qualities. With Jacoby Myers' ability as a blocker, you really don't want to take him off the field in 12. But when you get into 13 personnel, what you can do is you have guys like Brenton Strange who are a threat in the run blocking department and as a receiver sort of underneath. But I do think his game is sort of growing downfield. Borkercher definitely is more of a blocker and a blocking tight end. But I do think part of his game at Texas A&M that was sort of left untapped into by that offense was the fact that he could make plays as a receiver. Part of it was because I think their quarterback just missed him at points, but I do think he has the potential to be at least a second viable threat in the passing game. So I think when you get multiple guys on the field, like you said, Koziel is probably going to be more of a healthy scratch until later on in the season, maybe in 2027. But even if he does play, he provides a different aspect to this team in the fact that he's tall and he can go up and get the ball in the red zone, which is where I think, again, they want to be more efficient when it comes to red zone. And they want to score more touchdowns and not have to settle for field goals in that area. So I think I would like to see more 13 personnel, but I do also understand that you want to try and get your most explosive and best players on the field. And a lot of the Jaguars' best players are in that receiver core.
And again, Rome was not built in a day. Well, yes, the Jaguars will be contenders. I was going to say Super Bowl contenders. I don't want anybody, taking that and running with it, but I do think the Jaguars will contend for a Super Bowl in 2026, and I believe you do as well, JP, or at the very least, they will contend for an AFC title. That doesn't mean it's the finished product. A lot of what took place this offseason was done with the idea of 27 and 28 in mind, as much as competing here and now. All right, I've babbled too much when it comes to coming up with ideas, pressing thoughts heading into training camp tomorrow. What else besides that idea of continuity, besides the idea of the Rams and the Seahawks haunting Liam Cohen in his sleep alongside the dreams of Nate Borkercher, are you thinking about as training camp gets set to kick off tomorrow?
I'm excited to see what year 2 of this Campanelli defense looks like with Travis Hunter playing cornerback, because when I was looking at the Jaguars, especially this offseason, the way I talked about the Jaguars is it's sort of a sliding scale from 2026. So last year they had a lot of turnovers, but I do think their defense, especially in the passing game, was a little more volatile. And now that Devin Lloyd is gone, I think there's going to be a little bit more of a drop in turnovers. But because turnovers are kind of sticky and just aren't consistent year over year, that's okay if you can iron that out by having more snap to snap, down to down consistency from your passing defense. And I think by adding Travis Hunter to that secondary, you have quietly a very, very fun secondary. I mean, with Jarian Jones playing well, Jordan Lewis, Buster Brown coming back, and Travis Hunter, you have the great problem of, okay, we have 4 guys for 3 spots. And now if Jordan Lewis isn't healthy, you can be like, okay, Jarian Jones can go play a nickel and we're good there. You have a good problem at safety where you have Antonio Johnson coming off a breakout year. You have Eric Murray. You have Caleb Bransaw, who's going to be coming back. He was more of a sort of nickel safety hybrid at Tulane, but I'm curious if he plays deep in for the Jaguars this year. And then you also have Jalen Husky, who I think sort of occupies that same sort of nickel safety versatility role. But you have a good problem now where you have 2 slots open or 2 spots at safety, and you have 4 guys who can compete for it. But I do think this defense and what they want to be in the secondary is going to help inform everything from the front to back of the defense, because this group is going to be led by that growth in the secondary. If you can get the pass rush going, that'll help the secondary out a lot. But I do think if the secondary itself is going to continue their stellar play without having some of that turnovers, I think it's going to be fine.
The Jaguars pass rush, 27th in sacks last year. But somehow, some way, it feels like JP, unlike in previous iterations of this team, we're not like that isn't the talking point of the offseason. And so maybe it is because people have recognized that the secondary is ascending. Maybe they do believe in the second year jump for a BJ Green, a Danny Strigow, and certainly more reinforcements at the off ball linebacker position where you can bring Dennis Gardick to a wide nine. What Jalen McLeod can do remains a mystery, let alone if he makes the roster, but maybe that generates more of a pass rush. And then, of course, overarching theme to your point with Camp, he's going to send more blitzes than most defensive coordinators in the National Football League because he is a descendant of that Brian Flores tree. Not a part of the Action Sports Jacks network, but I do want to plug it because I think it's a great way to combine our conversation about the offense with the defense. Denny Thompson and Pastor Joby from Church 1122, they're Built for More podcast. Tony Baselli was on it last week. Liam is on it this week. I encourage you to listen to both. Everyone listening, almost 100, over 150 of you guys hanging out with us now. I encourage you to listen to it because it's just a great story and to hear both Liam and Tony's journey. But because my ears are always listening for sort of, little factoids about the Jaguars and the NFL, JP. Baselli was discussing Nate Borkature being drafted in the second round and the draft pundits online killing the Jaguars. And he said two things of note, and one relates to our offensive conversation, one relates to the defensive conversation. He said that they know that there were two teams picking within the next 10 picks after the Jaguars who plan to take Nate Borkature. So that's number one. But then when he was discussing just, these draft guys and they wanted us to take a corner. We're good at corner. And it was a very subtle moment in the podcast, but I went back and I listened because I was like, did he just say what I think he said? And so that's where I am fascinated by this secondary being so loaded, JP, because Camp proved in the second half of last year something that in speaking with players in that locker room, he told them the first half of the season, but he actually put his words where his actions were in the second half of the year, where he found a way to get his best 11 on the field, even if that meant having one off-ball linebacker. And so I'm just curious, where that evolution can continue if it is such a loaded secondary, a corner and safety room, and maybe they're a little bit leaner along the line.
And that's sort of where I'm curious where Campanelli grows in this defense because, like we said, this secondary is really talented and there's not a lot of spots open for starters. Right. But I do think linebacker and the front is sort of where you can start to add more guys. If you look at what Super Bowl champions have looked like in the last 2 years with the Seahawks and the Eagles. They have waves of pass rushers, waves of defensive linemen. They can rotate in and out. The Seahawks last year, they were able to take Byron Murphy, Leonard Williams off the field. You could put on Jaron Reed. If you want to take off Uchenna Nwosu, okay, we'll just bring on Derek Hall and Boye Mafe instead of DeMarcus Lawrence. You can rotate guys in for pass rush and generate pass rush via scheme and pressure more than just one guy just absolutely dominating. So I wonder if that's where the Jaguars are going to go with their pressure plan is pressure via scheme and pressure via design blitzes, because I think that's sort of, I don't want to call it the defensive meta in the NFL, but with all the simulated pressures, with all the creeper looks, you're trying to give the offensive line an information overload. You're trying to show them a bunch of different things while actually not showing them anything at all. So I do wonder if that leads to, more Dennis Gardeck walked up on the line of scrimmage. Maybe we see more blitzing from the secondary. That's why a guy like Caleb Bransaw is really fascinating going into camp, because his best play at Tulane came when he was closer to the line of scrimmage and closer to the action. So I'm curious to see how he pulls the strings and pulls the levers, while also knowing that there's a little bit of a question at linebacker. I know that they have said and they have reiterated that they believe in Ventrell Miller, and I'm not gonna blame them for it because they have shown through their actions this offseason they believe in Ventrell Miller. But I also wonder what this defense looks like with Ventrell Miller instead of Devin Lloyd. As much as Devin Lloyd was maligned during his time in Jacksonville, where Anthony Campanelli unlocked him, was using him on the line of scrimmage, getting his role sort of streamlined to either you're just moving forward or just moving straight backward. You don't need to do anything in match coverage. You don't need to do anything super complex. Just run forward or run backward. I wonder if that changes with Ventrell Miller, but you do also lose sort of that impactful play of Devin Lloyd, especially as a run defender. So I wonder how the levers start to get pulled. Do you add more secondary guys to the field just to add more bodies into the run game? Do you play bigger up front to try and make sure Ventrell Miller stays clean? There's a lot of answers to the question, but I wonder how the Jaguars are going to use those solutions.
Because to your point, there are a lot of answers. And so therefore, they could answer it differently each and every week. As I tweeted out during draft week, JP, and I'm holding firm to it, you're not replacing Devin Lloyd with one player. You're replacing him in the aggregate. And that's why I have also been steadfast, especially when you look at James Gladstone's history with the Los Angeles Rams, that while, yes, Ventrell Miller may be the starter, I believe you will see lots of Branson Combs on the football field. I also believe that Ventrell Miller entering a contract year probably going to be allowed to walk and get a bag, just like Devin Lloyd did. And then Branson Combs ascends to Ventrell Miller's possession, which, because he was an undrafted free agent, he will then have an opportunity to potentially test the waters of free agency. Is that where 7th rounder this year, Parker Hughes, then enters the conveyor belt the following season? Again, everything that this regime has done is not just for 2026. It is with 27 and 28 firmly in mind, and not just nebulous terms saying, oh, well, we have to think about the future. There are specific moves being made. And that is also why they keep everyone guessing, because you don't know what is a move or a lever pulled for this year versus beyond that. Let's take our time out. Let's catch our breath. Amazing discussion with one JP Acosta. When we come back, I do want to run you through kind of the gauntlet of the AFC, some numbers that surprised me with regards to the landscape and where the Jaguars fall into it. So we will be back in 2 minutes on the other side here on the Action Sports Jacks 24/7 Network and Club 904.
People helping people. It's at the core of what Alive Credit Union is all about, and it's been that way for over 70 years. From the start in 1954 to today, the mission remains to inspire financial wellness and give you a financially fit lifestyle. Alive Credit Union and its employees are committed to not only serving their valued members, but also our community here in Northeast Florida. I had a chance to see that commitment firsthand as Alive partnered with our Action Sports Jacks 24/7 team to bring you Armada men's and women's soccer broadcasts. Inside the 18, it is a shot, and it's a goal! Chloe Chivers! And that connection to the community continues with Alive Credit Union's support of the Police Athletic League of Jacksonville. Alive Credit Union's commitment to our community also involves serving the financial needs of all first responders through the recent merger partnership with City and Police Federal Credit Union. Join the community and become a member of Alive Credit Union today. Find out the many ways you can be inspired in financial wellness at alivecu.coop.
Most of us know how to throw. But you need to know what to throw. I'm not talking about footballs, baseballs, softballs. We're talking about those items you need to recycle. Republic Services explains it easy. Recycling simplified. 1. Know what to throw. When in doubt, throw it out. 2. Empty, clean, and dry those materials. It takes an extra minute, but it makes a big difference. And 3. Don't bag it. This makes the recycling process faster and more efficient. This is a look at the Republic Services North Florida Recycling Center. You can make this process even more efficient. By utilizing those 3 steps, Republic Services can help you become a better recycler in your home. Learn more at recyclingsimplified.com.
Welcome back to today's episode of Club 904. I am joined by CBS Sports' JP Acosta. As always, if you guys have a question, leave a comment, leave a thought or two in the live chat over on YouTube or Twitter. I still don't know how to reply on Twitter to live streams, JP, but our listeners, our clubbers, they do know how to. So if you guys do have a comment, make sure you leave that in the chat. We opened up by discussing our final preliminary pressing thoughts with regards to the Jaguars 2026 season. Now I want to go 30,000-foot view, the landscape of the AFC. JP, on the offensive side of the ball, and the same can be said on defense, by the way, 4 of the top 10 offenses in total EPA, according to Sumer Sports last year in the NFL, were from the AFC. And the 4th of those 4 teams was the Indianapolis Colts at number 9, which, as we know, a little bit of fool's gold and a pretty easy first half of the schedule. Then obviously they lost Daniel Jones the final month of the season. And so I don't even know if I count them. In terms of success rate, same exact ratio, 4 teams in the AFC and the 10th ranked team overall, the Bengals. We know that they've got some warts and all on the other side of the football and even on the offensive side of the ball for that matter when it comes to the run game. And so in terms of where the Jaguars rank, big picture on offense, before we dive into their 3 divisional opponents and maybe some other threats to returning to the postseason, what do you make of the AFC? I mean, is this kind of like, we've spent a lot of time on ESPN radio this week talking about how in the NBA, LeBron joining the 76ers might make this the greatest Eastern Conference of our lifetime. And I don't feel that way about the AFC heading into 2026.
I think with the AFC, the biggest thing is that every team has strengths that make it that make them super overwhelming. And I think that's sort of what stood out last year with most of the teams that made the playoffs. But I also think every team can be beaten on their day. There's going to be a major flaw for any of the top contenders. I mean, if you want to look at the Patriots this season, I think while they improved their offense a lot by adding A.J. Brown, the addition of or the growth of Kayshon Boutte to sort of give them a very well-rounded receiver room outside of to help Drake May ascend into his third year. But I also think their defense might have a little bit of issues with their pass rush, especially in their edge room. I think if you want to look at the teams with the 3 or 4 best quarterbacks in the league, it's the Chiefs, Ravens, Bills, and Bengals. And I mean, of those teams, the Chiefs, Ravens, and Bills all are sort of undergoing a little bit of identity changes on both sides of the ball. 2 of them changed coaches. One of them is going to have a quarterback coming off a torn ACL. So I think while the AFC feels a little more open than it used to be, I do also think that makes for a pretty fun conference because every team can be beaten. Every team has their one flaw that could end up being, if you mask it enough, you can win a Super Bowl. If you don't, you could end up being knocked out in the first round.
You mentioned every team has a flaw. You also said every team has a superpower, to take a James Gladstone term. What is the Jaguars' superpower in 2026?
I think the Jaguars' superpower is their balance, and I think it's going to sound funny when I say it, but everybody with the Bills is saying the everybody eats offense when you say everybody eats, that just means your passing game doesn't have a true number 1 receiver. But I do think the Jaguars are the best example of an everybody eats offense in the best way possible, because everybody has their role and they're all stars in that role. It's why, they didn't trade Brian Thomas Jr. because he is so important to this team in his role. Not only is he the most talented receiver on this team, his threat of speed, not only just him being fast, but running him on these vertical routes opens up everything for guys like Brenton Strange, for Jacoby Myers, for Parker Washington in the intermediate areas of the field. And without Brian Thomas Jr., you don't get that. And then without Jacoby Myers, you don't get the physicality over the middle. You don't get the additions as a blocker. You sort of lose that safety blanket. And it looks like what it did in the first half of the season with everybody dropping passes over the middle of the field. Then with Parker Washington, you get the third down separator. You get the guy against man coverage. I think that's the biggest thing that has really improved for the Jaguars over the back half of last season was they started having better answers against man coverage because Parker Washington would shred man coverage. So now everybody has their role, and I think it truly is an everybody eats offense, and their superpower is the fact that they are a balanced offense.
So to build off that and to pay homage to John Shipley again, who joined us on last week's episode, in case you missed it, go check it out, our roundtable. He said, when I asked him what is the Jaguars' biggest strength going into this season, he said self-scouting. And I think it builds exactly off of what you're saying with that balanced attack. The reality is that the Jaguars' biggest strength might be that they have one of the most competent coaching staffs in the NFL, which is something, JP, that if you had told us 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago,
Never
that
would
would
have
be never. But, and it's not just, they're competent because they're adults. It's that they have this uncanny ability to look at the landscape of the AFC like we're doing right now and recognize, okay, where can we match that? Where can we one up that? And it's been incredible to see through the first season of Liam Cohen, Anthony Campanelli, Grant Udinski, James Gladstone, and the rest of the triumvirate. But it is something that I'm fascinated to see this upcoming season, knowing the additions they made that, again, to your point, didn't win the offseason, but if it makes them more multiple compared to the rest of the AFC, all of a sudden now you say, oh, I get why you drafted Nate Borkercher, because all of a sudden now we don't see a 6th offensive lineman trotting onto the field and say, oh, they're definitely running the football. You don't know, especially with the performance he got at the Senior Bowl. He could absolutely run around unbeknownst to the opposing defense. And so, I think that, yes, everything you said is true. My one question would just be this. Daniel Jeremiah has long said that every Super Bowl team needs a couple of those blue tier players. Do the Jaguars have that, or do they just have a lot of green guys right now, which is the second tier, by the way? That's like the B tier.
I think if you're asking the Jaguars, I think their blue dot players are Trevor Lawrence and Josh Hines Allen. I think those are their guys who tilt the scales into the favor of their own. They are their aces for this team. Now, does that mean I think those guys are their blue chip players? I think Trevor Lawrence can be, but I think there's a little bit more consistency that needs to happen over the course of this season. And I think that's why I'm so excited about another year with Liam Cohen, because I think Trevor Lawrence he didn't get a lot of credit for what he did pre-snap this last season in terms of getting them into the right play. It's why every snap came down to like the last 5 seconds was Trevor Lawrence was getting them into the perfect play against this coverage. So I think he didn't get a lot of credit for that. I want to see more growth from him in that and consistency. But I think on the defensive side of the ball, your hope is that Josh Hines Allen is that blue chip player. I think he is their blue dot. If you're looking for a finisher on plays, if you're looking for someone to turn the pass rush pressures into sacks, it has to be Josh Hines Allen. But I also think Travis Hunter can be that. And it's just about, we have to see more extended time. So I don't want to call Travis Hunter a blue chip player just yet, because I want to see him like in a full season, but I think he has the talent to do it.
So one team who undoubtedly we could list off and probably need 2 hands to do so, the blue dot players on their roster right now, it's the Houston Texans. The good news is I wouldn't put their quarterback in that conversation. I love their running back. I covered him when he was in college at Iowa State. I wouldn't put him in that conversation. It's obviously that defense that was number 1 in EPA last year. By the way, the Jaguars defense was number 3. So it's not like there was this dramatic separation between those two. And especially heading into 2026 with a second go around with camp, where do you see this AFC South landscape landing ultimately, JP? Barring injuries, knowing, of course, the Texans, the Jags kind of on a collision course, but there's a lot of love for the Colts in the street, and not to mention a first-year regime in Nashville.
I think it's going to end up just like it was last year, with the Texans and the Jaguars sort of duking it out for that AFC playoff spot, for being the winner of the AFC South. And the main reason I say that is because, again, the Texans have the best defense in the NFL and brought everybody back, and also added Caden McDonald and Reed Blankenship to that defense. They are still going to be a very good defense, and I think the offense is going to be. I say this and not mean it in a negative way. It's going to be less CJ Stroud centric. And I think that's a good thing. I think you want to take something off the plate of your quarterback to maximize what he does best, so he's not having to do everything. Hopefully that run game for them is going to be good, and you're going to get an offensive line that can create some force when it comes to all the gap scheme they're going to run. And you allow CJ Stroud to just maximize the passes that he's going to take and make. So I think that's the hope for them. But again, it's a risk to take, especially when their biggest additions on the offensive line was Wyatt Teller, who hasn't been healthy for a minute, and Braden Smith, who also hasn't been healthy for a minute. So you run the risk of being right where you were last year. But I do think that team is going to improve when it comes to their run game and improve when it comes to their offense. It's just about if the passing game can just hit those 2 or 3 explosives needed to tilt the favors into it for a football game. And then the Colts, I wish I could believe more in the Colts, because I do think Shane Steichen is a very good designer of offense. I think he is a very good offensive coordinator, but I just don't know if that team is good enough to be in the position where they are now, where they don't have a first-round pick because they traded for Sauce Gardner, and that team is supposed to be going to try and win a Super Bowl this year, but their quarterback's coming off a torn Achilles in December and is on track to fully participate in training camp, but that still runs a risk to me of you don't want to rush back from those injuries. I mean, if you look at some of the Achilles tears from around sports, a lot of them did not come back until late in the next season, or didn't come back at all. Daniel Jones is going to be back for week 1. So I'm not sure how that's going to look for the Colts offense. And then defensively, they have a lot of young guys who are stepping into roles where they're going to be playing a lot of man coverage under Lou Anarumo. So I think I would like to believe in the Colts a little bit more. I also think the Titans are maybe 2 years away. The defense should be better, but that offensive line is still not going to be very good.
They're the Jets then, with Cam Ward at quarterback. They're the Robert Saleh Jets.
Yeah, so sort of. I do think they have a better quarterback in Cam Ward, but I also think the dynamic between Brian Daboll and Cam Ward is going to be fascinating to watch this year, because everybody says like, oh, Brian Daboll helped Josh Allen develop into what he is. He got Daniel Jones to his best year as a quarterback. he also ran both of them like 40 times a game. Like that's also not a part of Cam Ward's game as a designed runner. So how much of that is going to affect his ability to throw the ball if you're going to use him in the run game as much as you are? And the offensive line just still isn't great yet. I mean, their starting center is going to be Oshis Lotman. There's a good chance that Pat Coogan, Indiana center, 5th round draft pick, is probably going to start games for them this year. And then at guard for them is Cordell Volson, who left the Bengals. So I just don't know if they're ready yet to contend. So I think this AFC South is going to come back down to the Jaguars and Texans up until the last week.
The final two teams standing last year in the AFC figure to be in the conversation again. I'm going to throw the Bills in as the third team just because that's who beat the Jags. And quite frankly, you could make an argument they should have been in the AFC Championship game as opposed to the Broncos. Broncos quarterback Bo Nix also coming off an injury, much like Daniel Jones and Cam Ward for that matter. We forget Cam Ward had that injury against Jacksonville in the second to last game of the season. And then, of course, the New England Patriots, who represented the AFC in the Super Bowl. JP, of those three, who are you buying in 2026?
I'm buying into the Patriots, actually.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I think they're going to be back. I do think that Drake May is very good. I do love the addition of A.J. Brown, and not only the addition of A.J. Brown as just the number one receiver, but you can move him around and rotate him within that receiving core that now has Romeo Doubs. Kayshon Boutte is growing even more, and you just have a lot more answers. And I know that the offensive line did not play very well to end the season, but Will Campbell is coming off an MCL injury, and I do think that adding Elijah Vera Tucker is sort of a good swing for them to move Jared Wilson back to center and just give them at least an average offensive line unit. If they can just be average, I do think that offense is going to be very good once again, and I think the defense should still have their moments. They have Milton Williams, Christian Barmore, one of the best defensive tackle duos in the league. I love their secondary and what Craig Woodson can be, safety. I think he's going to have a breakout year this year. Chris Gonzalez and Carlton Davis are awesome. So I'm still a big believer in the Patriots. I do think they're going to win that division. So I think they're going to be one of the favorites in the AFC.
And by the way, I agree, not so much with the Patriots prediction, but that the Broncos will have some regression to the mean, just because I do not see a world in which they tally 68 sacks again. And of course, Bo Nix again, also coming off of an injury, although I do love the addition of Jalen Waddle, what that could do for Sean Payton's offense. I said we'd get you out by 2:30. It's now 2:44 Eastern Standard Time, JP. So just one more question for you. Regardless, AFC, NFC, who is your breakout team? It doesn't have to be a worst to first, but who's the team that's going to turn all of our heads in 2026?
Ooh, that is a great question. I actually think that I think the Raiders might be fun.
Oh, yay!
I don't know if they're going to be I don't know if they're going to be a playoff team. I'm not going to sit here and say the Raiders are making the playoffs in year one of Clint Kubiak, year one of Fernando Mendoza. But I do think they're going to be a competitive unit. They're going to be a competent unit. I love what Clint Kubiak does offensively and how he sort of insulates a quarterback with the run game. That team is very talented. Ashton Junty should benefit a lot from Clint Kubiak being their head coach. And then defensively, I love their additions that they made. Bringing back the Georgia defense with the Kobe Dean and Quay Walker, you bring back a motivated Max Crosby. I think that could be something really fun. I don't know if it's going to be good, but they're in the NBA, they have like league pass teams where you're not going to put them on national television, but if they're on league pass, you're going to watch them. I think the Raiders they're the Sunday ticket team of the year. That's what I'll call them. They're the Sunday ticket team.
I'm going to have to bring that to game night on ESPN Radio, where my co-host Q Myers, of course, is the director of programming at ESPN Las Vegas. He is going to love that. The Sunday ticket team of the year, the Las Vegas Raiders, regardless of if Fernando Mendoza starts week 1 or not, JP.
I think, regardless of if Mendoza starts week 1 or not, I do think they're going to be fun. I expect Mendoza to start by like week 6.
Okay, week 6. Okay. I'm excited to write all this down and revisit it with you, revisit it with Q throughout the course of this 2026 season, because it's going to be a fun one. We appreciate you always being so willing to hop in with all of the clubbers, the Jaguars fans here in Duval. JP, keep making us proud. And before you go, remind folks where they can catch you this fall.
You can find me on CBS Sports Network, CBS Sports HQ, wherever CBS Sports is going to be talking about football. I'm probably going to be there. You can find my writing at cbssports.com, but just follow me on the interwebs, the internet, Acosta32_JP, see what I'm doing.
Love it. JP, we appreciate you, brother. We will see you soon. We'll see you on the grass.
Thank you.
the one and only JP Acosta. Let's take one more time out. When we come back, you will hear from Liam Cohen. You will hear from Trevor Lawrence on the other side here on Club 904.
See a pit? It ain't legit. When you hear that, you think Bono's Pit Barbecue, a staple in Northeast Florida now for 75 years. A place that feels like home with friendly service, a meeting place for friends, family, or business occasions. On the menu, the corn nuggets are a favorite in our house, but there's something for everyone. Sandwiches, platters, salads, sides, desserts, and family feasts. You see Bono's all over the place in Northeast Florida. You know, there are almost 20 locations in the Jacksonville area now, so stop on by, sit down, and dine in with Bono's. You can also take it to go. There are drive-thrus in many of the locations, and they have delivery options too. Just download the Bono's app to make things easy. I signed up for the loyalty program, and you can too, to get special offers. If Jacksonville is home, few things feel more Jacksonville than Bono's Pit Barbecue. Celebrate 75 years and many more to come. Bono's Pit Barbecue. If you don't see a pit, it ain't legit.
Choose your own adventure. It's not just a saying, but a way of life here at Cycles of Jacksonville. And whether it's 2 wheels or 4 wheels, at Cycles of Jacksonville, a great adventure awaits. With brands like Honda, Vespa, Segway, and Triumph, Cycles of Jacksonville has you covered with their inventory featuring a 60,000 square foot building. If 4 wheels is more your thing, check out the largest selection of Honda Talons in the entire county. No matter what you're looking for, Cycles of Jacksonville is going to have the selection you need, all with great financing and rebates. Plus, if you're active duty military, Cycles of Jacksonville will offer you 0% financing along with great discounts for military and first responders. And when you want to get off the road and set sail, Cycles of Jacksonville has you covered with everything you need to get on the water. So if you're ready for a great adventure, let Cycles of Jacksonville be your guide. Located off Atlantic Boulevard, or check out their website at cyclesofjacksonville.com.
Welcome back into Club 904. Final segment before we bid you adieu for the rest of the week. Of course, Brent and Austin will be on the Action Sports Jacks 24/7 network, 10 a.m. to noon the rest of the week, including some stops at Jaguars training camp. Yours truly will be there as well as part of the Action Sports Jacks contingent. Plus, of course, you can find my written reports over at the Mo Bryan NFL Notebook. Oh, yes, baby. We are fired up. You will be able to access those lovely goodies with plenty of nuggets and more from training camp over on the Mo Bryan Notebook website, which is currently scrolling. Bottom line, right here. Free 7-day trial is ongoing. Subscriptions start at $5 per month, and our Discord chat, will be popping with the NFL season full steam ahead. Let's get to some news and notes before you hear from Liam Cohen and Trevor Lawrence. First things first, this just in the last hour or so, Corey Ballantyne has been signed by the Jaguars after Dane Jackson was placed on the reserve retired list. And so that's a developing story here in Duval. Zay Jones in the building yesterday for a visit. I've seen interesting reaction to that. Some of you worried, oh my goodness, who's hurt? Who pulled a hammy? What happened? Well, it's now 2:50 on Tuesday, July 28th, as we're broadcasting live here at Action Sports Jacks. And if the Jaguars were to have a player placed on the PUP list beyond the 2 that they placed on the PUP list in the last 48 hours, and Cole Van Lanen, largely expected as he recovers from the knee injury, and the rookie offensive lineman out of UCLA, Garrett DiGregorio, we probably would have heard about that already at this point in time. Now, again, it's 2:50. I could be wrong, but the fact that we're out here, or rather not we, but the fact that the Jaguars PR team is out here tweeting about Corey Ballantyne, if someone was going to be placed on the PUP list, we already would know because the Jaguars veterans reported this morning and had to take physicals upon arrival. So I would think we would know that already. So I think the Zay Jones visit just speaks to the reality that once you get past the top 3 of Jacoby Myers, Parker Washington, and Brian Thomas Jr., and knowing that Travis Hunter is going to have an active role on defense just based off the numbers, you have nothing but rookies, a second-year wide receiver in Chandler Brayboy, Austin Trammell, and Tim Jones. And listen, Tim Jones is my dog, but that kind of says it all. In case you need an extra camp body, in case you want another veteran guy in that locker room, look, Zay, obviously, we know, had the suspension after some off-the-field issues that occurred here in Jacksonville, which we're not even going to go down that road. But point being, he's done his penance, and if the Jaguars are willing to welcome him back, trust me, this broadcaster Nothing but love for one Zay Jones. Speaking of nothing but love, Douglas Peterson is going to be a part of CBS Sports' college football broadcast. I forgot to ask JP that too. Man, oh man, I got to text him now before we get out of here and ask him his thoughts on Douglas. Vita Vea, as mentioned, has requested a trade from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, a ongoing situation down there in Liam Cohen's former locale. Baker Mayfield had said if a contract extension was not reached prior to his report date for training camp, he would be playing in a final contract year, which now all signs indicate he will. And finally, Jalen Carter got paid this morning by the Philadelphia Eagles, which for those of you who clamored for him to potentially be traded for, well, doesn't look like he's going anywhere. Shout out to the Raiders, man. JP Acosta, Sunday Ticket Team of the Year. Everyone else is always saying, wow, look at Howie Roseman just collecting all these Georgia Bulldogs. Maybe you should have done the same thing. The Jags have kind of tried to do it. It really hasn't worked out too well. But shout out to the Raiders because they're going to try it. All right, here we go. Here is Liam Cohen. His biggest concern, he and Brent Martineau discussing this at the MEC yesterday in terms of short yardage, need to get more physical, and that all-important run game.
You say in, I think, the hunt, year 2 is the year.
That's right. It is.
Why is that? And specifically with this organization, I feel like you're absolutely right. Have not gone back-to-back postseason since 1999. I'm sure you're aware of that. But why? Why is year 2 the most important year?
Because I believe consistency is the truest measure of performance. And so we want respect, right? Like a lot of players when I got here, we're talking about, don't have a lot of respect. And they're not talking about the media. It's peers, right? That's so much in the NFL, I believe, in playing at the highest level of sport. Yes, it's about championships, right? But when your career is done and your time is done at a place, I think you'd love for the people that you are around to say, man, I respected the heck out of that guy as a competitor, as a teammate, whatever it is, right? And so we feel no different about organizations, about teams. You want respect. You want to earn and take respect because the money, the fame, the wins, all that stuff, like it is going to somehow go away. But respect, I believe, when you think about people in life that you respect, man, you're always going to remember that. And so to me, the consistency of doing it, and man, that's just who we are. This is a part of our fiber. It's a part of our being. We wake up and brush our teeth and go to work every single day, and we're respected. And that's what consistency does. So year 2, man, it's about consistency. I can't promise 13 wins. I can't promise this and that, but I can say, man, we are hunting up respect, and that's more about us, right? And here, our peers, the other players, coaches, whatever it is around the league, and your legacy. What do you want your legacy to be?
That interview is available right now over at the Action Sports Jacks 24/7 YouTube channel. If you just go over to the video tab, you can catch both Trevor Lawrence and Liam Cohen on demand right now. We are going to hear from, let's see if we're going to hear from Trevor Lawrence. Actually, I don't know. Actually, yeah, we can. We can hear from Trevor Lawrence. Stand by. We're going to make sure that you guys get to hear from him before we get out the door here on Club 904. And I encourage you to go back and listen. Unfortunately, because our time was short because we went so long with JP Acosta, can't let you guys listen anymore. But again, available right now. You can listen to both Liam Cohen and one Trevor Lawrence, who we are going to fire up right now as he discusses the one, the only, Travis Hunter and his return from his knee injury.
Get everybody excited. How good does Travis Hunter look? We're seeing videos.
He looks good. He looks really good. Yeah, we got an opportunity to work out a little bit this summer. And he looks good. It's like he's gained some weight. He's bigger, but he doesn't look like he's lost a step at all. He looks maybe even faster. So just excited. I mean, that guy loves football. So I'm excited for our teams to make us better, but I'm really excited for him. I know he's dying to get back out there.
We joked with Liam a little bit. Fantasy football people don't like you guys because you're going to really spread the ball. It's not like, hey, one guy, right?
Good.
I mean, yeah, right. Good. You'll maybe get a little mentions in your social media because of it, but I mean, how much of a weapon is that we really don't know going into a game who might be the guy this week?
It's a huge weapon. I mean, for an offense to be balanced, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of great receivers in this league and a lot of good offenses, but as far as the balance that we have, I mean, I think we're up there at the top of the league. It's just the weapons everywhere. Everyone's a threat. And I think the cool thing about it is everyone's different too. It's not, every receiver that we have and tight end are really different players. So you can do so much with those guys. And I think it's going to be hard for defenses you can't really tilt coverage one way all the time because we got 3, 4, 5 guys that are threats in the passing game.
Oh, man. Oh, man. Well, JP Acosta hit the nail on the head with that word balance because Trevor Lawrence used it as well. I wonder if JP knows that. If you continue listening to that soundbite, again, we're pressed for time right now. Austin Lane actually puts Trevor through a gauntlet, question by question. Give me a word to describe Brian Thomas Jr. Give me a word to describe Parker Washington. They also put Liam Cohen on the whiteboard, which I highly encourage checking out. I know Noah's going to clip that into a segment, I'm sure, for social. But having Liam Cohen draw up his favorite plays, a lot of fun with the boys over on the Brett and Austin show. And again, that is available on demand right now. Go check it out at the Action Sports Jacks YouTube, which if you're listening to us live right now on YouTube, you're already there. Just go back to the Action Sports Jacks channel once we are all set and done. And you can click on video, and then you could go ahead and listen to both Liam Cohen and Trevor Lawrence. And of course, great to hear the positive updates about one Travis Hunter, perhaps the biggest X factor, not just in Duval in 2026, but the league at large. As always, we end with a little bit of live Q&A. Only 2 minutes to go before we hit the top of the hour, so let's get after it. Ether Dark, what Jag are you taking in fantasy? Oh, there we go. Right back to that balanced word. I don't want to speak for JP, but I would guess Jacoby Myers. And I don't think he's going to be a wide receiver one on your fantasy team, but I think in terms of consistent production week over week, as long as he's healthy, that's who I would roll with. I also think that Bashal Tutin is going to be RB1. I am excited to speak with Chris Rodriguez later this week at Jaguars practice because I know that's already on the docket for me, and they'll be on the docket for you guys on Club 904 next week to get to hear that interview. Of course, it'll be available well before next Tuesday when we join you at the same time, same place. But I think that Bashal Tutin would be a smart play as well because I do think in terms of first and second down, middle of the field, like he's no longer your short yardage back. That also means Chris Rodriguez could be a touchdown thief or whatever you guys call it, merchant or whatever you guys call it, even though I think he's going to be really good in the short yardage situations. If you need any more ammo for why you should support the C-Rod signing from Washington, just go YouTube, Iowa, of course, Kentucky, 2022 Citrus Bowl. I was there. I was spotting for one Gary Dolphin, Learfield, Iowa radio broadcast group. And little did I know that the future head coach of the Jaguars was calling plays on the other sideline, and future Jaguars running back Chris Rodriguez was carving up the Hawkeyes. Feels like a good spot to end. And in the radio business, we call that a tease because C-Rod will join me next week on Club 904. And of course, you'll be able to hear that interview well before then here on Action Sports Jacks on the TV, the digital side, and of course, over at the Mo Bryan NFL Notebook. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us as always here in Club 904. Make sure you like this episode on your way out the door. You subscribe to Action Sports Jacks. We are headed to training camp tomorrow, folks. All the content coming your way. We look forward to seeing you next time right back here in Club